Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, false flag, terror attacks, Bill Gates, Henry Kissinger, New World Order, mind control, Bank of America stealing homes with cut and paste mortgage loans, police, state, taser guns, FEMA camps, man to run, Monsanto rules the food supply while Big Pharma dopes your mind, prison system, profiteers, foundations, fund the fears, fund the evil through the years, the world's not as it appears. CIA smuggles drugs while Wachovia and Wells Fargo launder them, then give the proceeds to the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now the IRS takes money out of every single check. Money created out of thin air and leave you with debt. They want to make you a serf, a slave to their demand. They want to take your life in every way they can. Fluoride, GMO, vaccines, chemtrails, United Nations genocide. The world they show us is not real. This is how they kill and steal. Rothschild, Bundy, Rockefeller, Club of Rome. On the Georgia Guidestones it's written in stone. Cut through the matrix, awaken to the lies. Do not be hypnotized. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, I'm Howard Nima and you're watching Truth Talk News on truthbroadcastnetwork.com. It is Wednesday, November 28th, 2012, a relatively significant day for Truth Talk News. It is 1 year ago today that I began the live stream channel that you're currently watching the stream from on Truth Talk News, livestream.com, Truth Talk News. And it's done well as far as getting the information out. I know that the minutes, I believe, we're up to somewhere around 1,350,000 minutes. Now, I certainly didn't broadcast that, but that's what people have watched, including the archive library at Truth Talk News on livestream.com. And I'm going to plug YouTube, Freedom First Films, which, again, in the last year has taken a large step in the positive direction. If the economy looked like the views and the viewership of the information that I'm sharing with you here and asking you to research and find the truth and then share the same information. If we're all doing this, boy, we'll not only take back our country, we'll be creating a new media. And I think that is really the goal here, is to create a new media, a real media, a truth media. And people are tired of the lies. CNN getting caught, all of them lying. And of course, it is well known that they're lying. And the media is controlled. Today, I happen to, I'm going to do a little digression. Because today, this morning, I had shifted my schedule. I was home today. I'm going to, had a few things I had to take care of. And it was just unbelievable that they had a new lawsuit is being put together against the government, the CIA, for the death of Frank Olson, who, of course, was dosed with LSD. And CNN gave this ridiculous, I mean, my God, where they were like totally positioned in this and, oh, this and that and then, you know, I mean, totally were loaded questions and loaded information. And controlled completely. And then what I noticed was that I went to CNN. I couldn't find the feed of that, or the rebroadcast of it, or the information of it, or the article of it. In fact, I think I'll just go right now. I'm trying to find some information on it because it's current and it's very important. Because last week I actually made a video that I'll play for everyone. That's up on Freedom First Films on YouTube. And let me see. It was Frank Olson. Lawsuit 2012 against CIA. Yeah, maybe that should do it. Okay, all right, here it is. It's a New York Times article. Okay, so there's a New York Times article, and I'll read from it. Suit planned over the death of CIA man drugged. Now, we know what happened. I've went on record with this. I made a film about this and a recent broadcast, and I'll go over this again. This is from the New York Times, James Reason. And right there, Dick Cheney, well, there's Frank Gerald Ford apologizing in 75 to the family of Frank Olson, right here. But Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld sent Mrs. Olson correspondence, and they paid her off $775,000 in 1974 for wrongful death. Now, nearly 60 years after the death of Frank Olson, who had been given LSD by none less than, goodness, long day, Sidney Gottlieb, spiked his Cointreau. Without his knowledge, his family says it plans to sue the government, alleging he was murdered and did not commit suicide as the CIA had long maintained, even though they were paid off. Eric and Nils Olson, whose father, Frank Olson, was the scientist, said they plan to file a lawsuit in the United States District Court here on Wednesday in Washington, accusing the CIA of covering up the truth about Mr. Olson's death in 1953, which is exactly what they did, one of the most infamous cases in the agency's history. During the intelligence reforms in the 1970s, the government gave the Olson family a final settlement after the CIA was forced to acknowledge that Mr. Olson had been given hallucinogenic drug LSD 9 days before his death. So now on CNN, they were saying, well, how could that have had an effect on him, and why would he jump out the window later? Ladies and gentlemen, they dosed him again. Come on. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to put this together. So I'm very glad that this is happening, that it made the mainstream news, and of course the CNN tried to cover it up. The CNN, CIA, they should call themselves. There's the Olson family, the same year in 74 when this happened, when they first had this. Now, during the intelligence reforms in the 70s, the government gave the Olson family a final settlement and was forced to acknowledge, of course, that he had been given the drugs. And President Gerald Ford met with the Olson family at the White House and apologized. At the time, the government said Mr. Olson had been killed by himself, having thrown himself through a window, a closed window, in Manhattan, but came to believe that he had been murdered to keep him from talking about disturbing CIA operations that he uncovered, which is MK Ultra. And again, they just glossed over that today as well. MK Ultra is the mind control, Manchurian candidate, perfect spy, assassin, whatever you want to call them. They used it for various purposes, mostly for intelligence purposes. But it was, again, this whole bioweapons that Frank Olson was working with. Great book to read is CIA Medical Abuse, mind control and medical abuse by, I forget what his name is, Gordon. It's listed in the video. I'm going to play a video in the next couple of minutes about Frank Olson. It's really important. And this is, again, this is what the operations haven't changed. Oh, it's a different agency now. My God, it is not, of course. So Jennifer Youngblood, a CIA spokeswoman, this is the one who made the this is a person that we heard from today on CNN, I heard this, said the agency does not comment on pending cases. She did note that the CIA's most controversial episodes from early Cold War years, like Olson's death, have been thoroughly investigated over the years, and the agency cooperated with each of those investigations. Yes, bullshit. Over the decades, the Olson case has gained a kind of pop culture status as one of the signature examples of government secrecy and abuse. Oh, there's many of them. And references to the death have been made in television, films, books, and movies. Yeah, of course. Interestingly enough, Frank Olson was a bioweapons expert. And I'm going to play this video that I have because there's no reason to just have CNN's dribble about it. I did quite a bit of research on this matter, and found it to be a very, first of all, a very interesting story. I read several books regarding this, and certainly the connection to MK Ultra and Dr. Ewan Cameron and the mind control experiments and the torture and medical abuse that these people were subjected to. It's horrific. So yeah. It should bring us right through to the midsection point, and I will then we'll be at the break point. So this is like a 10 or 15 minute video that I put together about Frank Olson and the CIA's MK Ultra secrets and murder. MK Ultra COINTELPRO PSYOPs and Murder is the name of the video, and it is again found on Freedom First Films on YouTube. Well, you could just Google the name. All these videos come up. You can Google MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, PSYOPs, and Murder, and it should bring you to the place. But Google Freedom First Films on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, Freedom First Films, and you'll get all the archives. About 560 videos. Here we go. This is MK Ultra.
This is a Truth Talk News special report.
Frank Olson was a senior U.S. microbiologist at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. Recruited from the University of Wisconsin, where fate would have it, his departmental advisor was Ira Baldwin, the scientist who, along with big pharma giant George Merck and the U.S. military, established the U.S. bioweapons program in 1943. Olson had been assigned as a contact with the CIA's technical services staff run by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb and his deputy, Robert Lashbrook, to conduct experiments with bioweapons, toxins, and mind control drugs. The project was called MK Naomi, MK Ultra, previously known as Project Artichoke and earlier Project Bluebird. The torturous program was justified, like the nuclear arms race, due to claims that similar programs to create a Manchurian candidate were being conducted by the Soviets. Gotta keep up with the Joneses. In 1953, as deputy acting head of special operations for the CIA, Olson associated with Dr. William Sargent, investigating the use of psychoactive drugs at Britain's Biological Warfare Center at Porton Down. Olson was privy to the highly classified secrets of the CIA interrogation and biowarfare programs. On several occasions, he attended MK Ultra torture sessions at Porton Down and was increasingly plagued by what he had witnessed. On Wednesday, November 18, 1953, Frank Olson joined a group of CIA Special Operations Division agents, including Vincent Ruett, chief of the division, John Malowski, Gerald Yonitz, Ben Wilson, and John Schwab, on a retreat to Deep Creek Lake, some 3 hours' drive from Fort Detrick. The group was met at the lodge by Sidney Gottlieb, his deputy, Robert Lashbrook, and several others from the CIA. On the second day of the retreat, after dinner, Gottlieb spiked a bottle of Cointreau with a small quantity of a substance that he and his TSS colleagues privately referred to as cerumen. but which was, in actuality, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. Olson asked to quit the biowarfare program and devote his life to something else. The LSD was the icing on the cake. Olson was done with the criminally insane agency. The CIA's version of events state that due to the LSD dosing, Olson suffered severe paranoia, and he had a nervous breakdown. He was asked to go to New York to meet with their private psychiatrist, Harold Abramson, who was centrally involved in the research. Abramson recommended that Olson be placed in a mental institution for recovery. The CIA claimed that on his last night in Manhattan, Olson purportedly threw himself out of the window of his 10th floor hotel room at the Hotel Pennsylvania, which he had been sharing with CIA agent Robert Lashbrook. The biological warfare program and the chemical interrogation programs then remained hidden from the public until Richard Nixon's disclosure of the biowarfare program in 1969. Until then, the Olson family had no knowledge of the details of the accident. The U.S. President's Commission on CIA Activities within the United States was set up under President Gerald Ford in 1975 to investigate the activities of the Central Intelligence Agency and other intelligence agencies within the United States. The commission was led by Vice President Puppet Master Nelson Rockefeller, and is sometimes referred to as the Rockefeller Commission. The commission was created in response to a December 1974 report in the New York Times that the CIA had conducted illegal domestic activities, including experiments on U.S. citizens, during the 1960s. The Controlled Commission issued a single report in 1975 touching upon certain CIA abuses, including mail opening and surveillance of domestic dissident groups. It publicized Project MKUltra, a mind control study. In 1994, Eric Olson had his father's body exhumed to have a second autopsy performed. The 1953 medical report, done immediately after Dr. Olson's death, indicated that there were cuts and abrasions on the body. When the second autopsy was performed by James Starrs, professor of law and forensic science at the National Law Center at George Washington University, his team searched the body for any cuts and abrasions and found none. Starrs found a large hematoma on the left side of Olson's head and a large injury on his chest. The team concluded that the blunt force trauma to the head and injury to the chest had not occurred during the fall, but most likely in the room prior to the fall. The evidence was called rankly and starkly suggestive of homicide. Based on his findings, the 1996 Manhattan District Attorney opened a homicide investigation into Olson's death, but was unable to find enough evidence to bring charges.
The film you are about to see represents a significant breakthrough in the advancing science of the motion picture. You are about to witness history in the making.
I first dropped acid when I was 18. I was over at these people's house one night. This guy I went to school with was over there and asked me if I wanted to try some acid. I had read about it in the newspapers and heard a few friends talk about it, so I was curious. I was pretty jacked up on marijuana, so I decided to try it, and I dropped it.
As we see it, the typical psychiatric ward, LSD is certainly much more than a mere fad. Right now we have over a dozen people hospitalized because of acute symptoms resulting directly from their taking LSD. What is LSD? How does it work? When did it all begin?
It all began in a laboratory very much like this one. In 1938, Dr. Albert Hoffman in Switzerland was looking for new drugs in the treatment of migraine headaches. He had been studying substances that came from the molds that grow on rye plants. Now, it turned out that these substances were of no use in the treatment of migraine headaches, but subsequent investigation showed that they are very fascinating indeed in the changes that they produce in our mental state.
Changes in mental states, it turns out, was precisely what the United States Central Intelligence Agency was interested in. As these declassified documents show, beginning as early as 1953, under the codename MK Ultra, the CIA was beginning to experiment with LSD as a mind control drug. In particular, they were interested in the effects of LSD on an unwitting subject in a real-life setting. To that end, MK Ultra operatives started spontaneously dosing themselves and other agents with the drug. Things got so out of hand that a memo was
Sounds like a lot of fun, eh?
CIA staff. This memo stated, in part, that they did not recommend testing LSD in the Christmas punch bowls usually present at the Christmas office parties.
So we tripped down to Market Street, and I decided to buy a hot dog. I put the hot dog up to my mouth, and somebody started screaming. I didn't know what was happening, so I looked up at my friend Terry and said, "Did you hear that? Didn't you hear someone scream?" He said no. I got the hot dog up to my mouth again, and I was ready to bite, and the scream got louder. And I looked down at the hot dog, and there was a face on him. Eyes, nose, a mouth. I had put the ketchup to where it looked like his hair. And he started telling me that I couldn't eat him. That he had a wife and 7 kids at home to support. And I stood there with this hot dog and asked Terry, "Do you know this hot dog is talking to me?"
This girl is obviously acutely disturbed. She will be in the hospital for a few weeks or a few months. Some others who take LSD will have even more tragic freakouts. And there's no way to tell which ones these will be. Some forget what height means. And in a turned-on or euphoric state, step or attempt to fly from cliffs and high windows with real-life, permanent, non-psychedelic results.
One of the first people to ever experience something with real-life, permanent, non-psychedelic results was Dr. Frank Olson. Dr. Olson was a U.S. Army scientist who specialized in bacteriological warfare research, most specifically anthrax. In November of 1953, Olson and a group of CIA and Army technicians gathered at a location in remote Maryland for a work-related getaway.
For a dosing. They all dosed each other on acid.
A high-ranking CIA
However,
official
his
dosed
experience didn't go well.
with LSD. Whereas most of the participants enjoyed the experience, Olson's behavior was completely altered. He became sullen and withdrawn, and seemed to experience remorse at the type of work he was doing. His supervisor sent him to a CIA psychiatrist in New York, who recommended that Olson be put into a sanatorium. On his last night in Manhattan, Olson and Dr. Robert Lashbrook, the CIA agent responsible for watching out for him, checked into the Statler Hilton Hotel. Sometime during the night, Lashbrook woke to the sound of breaking glass. Olson had thrown himself out the window to the street 10 floors below. The matter was investigated by the CIA, who determined that Olson had committed suicide.
I wouldn't exactly call that investigation.
Finally, I decided I was just hallucinating, so I put it in my mouth and bit down. It screamed so loud.
You gotta love this
that
propaganda.
you
This is
could
propaganda, so
step
that you would
on
believe that he was
step
just
on it.
tripping on the acid, and that's why he killed himself. Not that he
And I
was
was
murdered
standing on
by
this
the
hot dog in the
CIA.
middle of Market Street. I realized that I had murdered it. And I took off screaming down the street, scared.
Death by biting hot dog.
Also running scared at this time was the CIA. In 1975, the Rockefeller Commission, appointed by President Gerald Ford, seen here at right, started conducting an investigation of some of the alleged misdeeds of the CIA. Some of the first excesses of the agency to come to light were the MK Ultra experiments and the death of Frank Olson. Olson's family, unaware of the true circumstances surrounding Frank's demise, was shocked. In response, the White House offered the Olsons an apology and a monetary settlement. The family was even brought to the White House to meet with Gerald Ford, seen here again on right. Prior to the Olsons' arrival in Washington, a memo was circulated among the White House staff outlining their strategy in dealing with the Olson case. The memo was addressed to staff member Donald Rumsfeld. The memo's author, Dick Cheney.
Same old criminals, same old bad boys.
Frank Olson's son Eric
Luciferian
was
scum.
about the circumstances surrounding his father's death. In 1994, he had his father's body exhumed and autopsied by a team of
And
forensic
now,
scientists. When
a new investigation, a new lawsuit. That's fantastic.
Or hemorrhage on the temple of Frank Olson's skull. A wound, some of the doctors agreed, that was there before Olson's fall out of the Statler window. The team's leader, Dr. James Stars, wrote in his report, "It is my view and a number of my team members that it was homicide." The film Case Study LSD was produced by the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation. Another of Lockheed's products was the U-2 spy plane, which they built under contract for the CIA.
Yeah, this is weird. Look at Sonny Bono. Look how ripped he's on acid.
But what you do with your life is up to you. You have the choice to have the courage to see and deal with the world for what it really is. Far, far from perfect, but for you and for me, the only one there is.
But you can be
You gotta love it. Dopey Chicken and Square. Alright, Scott Colonico. Good for you. Produced by Jeffrey, whatever his name was anyway. Public domain. Of course, fair use, public domain. That's what we have here. So anyone, please share this information. I mean, honestly, I'm speaking the truth. Research it. Find your own truth. There is only one truth. Once you realize what that is, do something about it. If you don't have the, I don't know, the moxie or whatever you want to call it to make a video, or you don't want to be seen, or whatever else could be done, or whatever, then share other people's videos, but real videos, not controlled information, not COINTELPRO, not these shills. The truth. Share the truth. Pretty much, if there's money behind it, unfortunately these days, it's a controlled operation. And I wish that it wasn't so. And I wish that it wasn't about that. And I wish that I could win the $500 million in the Powerball. That's today. And my wife spent, I think, $10 on it trying to buy tickets. Oh, God. But I tell you, if I did, I would, yeah, I would. I would buy a state, basically, for everybody that wants to be free, and then wake everybody up there, and as much as I could, I guess. Do something for humanity. But I think that many people are deceived, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to wake them up to the truth. The truth is, rock and roll is always the same. Life The Rockefellers, the scum. Got to expose the truth. And I think that, you know, it requires you to investigate. And it requires you to look beyond the images that you're given, the information that you're given. Look deeper than the surface, because really they're really not hiding it very well. It's on the surface. It's just below the surface, actually, I should say. The truth is right below the surface. And then you dig deeper and you find even more truth, and you find how these things connect, and you find the dots really all do connect. It's a very small group of people. 137 corporations pretty much have their fingers in everything. Banking, finance, all industries. It is a well worked out system. It took hundreds of years to evolve, and now we're here. Welcome to the New World Order. This is As You Saw. You're watching Truth Talk News on truthbroadcastnetwork.com. Stay tuned for more truth the mainstream media ignores in just a moment.
I've been living in a memory. I'm lost inside of your mind. I try to be what you want me to be, but I wasn't worth your time. The words you said went straight to my head, or was it just your own line? I'll never be as one as long as I have your life. And you can hear our song in love.
And we're back, the Bankster Criminals. Thank you for joining me. I'm Howard Nima, and you're watching Truth Talk News on truthbroadcastnetwork.com. We've got Harry Link coming up in just about 19 minutes. And between now and then, more truth to share with you. We were talking a lot about, of course, the New World Order. But now, as the year comes to an end and the big whole psyop about 12/12/21, the whole December 21st, the Mayan calendar, and everyone's all bye, Black Friday becomes like a week and a half before it. People trample each other to buy an iPod. Big Brother is watching everywhere. Life is just a controlled society. Very, very easy to manipulate because it's impulse based. People buy things on emotion, things they don't need. They've been bought and sold. And then we have the closing of the society. Healthcare now, socialized healthcare, as I did a show yesterday, speaking of the similarities between socialist healthcare and the ending results of it, eugenics, population reduction. We have some sick motherfuckers out there. These wealthy industrialists who have this abhorrence for humanity. I don't know how else. They're psychopaths. They are sociopaths, psychopaths. They want to get rid of us, and they are poisoning us, and it's happening. And everyone's like, "You're crazy. Oh, what are you talking about? You're a nut." But why are there all these additives in the food that cause all these other problems, medical conditions? Why do vaccines proliferate everybody? My God. Is it all about money? No. I wish it were. If it was all about money, at least you can understand it. But they're sociopaths. And then they want to know everything you want. They're control freak sociopaths. They want to watch your every move, poison you. And those that go against it, oh, you're crazy. They're crazy. Those people are crazy. Those that understand what's going on. We have to really wake the people up. This is a terrible, terrible situation. Death, mayhem. This healthcare system thing is going to really be a problem. Again, you've got these Darwinian, still to this day, the climate changers. Now they're having this summit down, 200 countries getting together to talk about climate change, while HAARP melts the atmosphere every time it's used, causing all these problems. But, don't believe me. Believe what they tell you on television, what they tell you on CNN when they lie, caught lying. I mean, you have to understand your enemy. It's the art of war. I mean, Sun Tzu, it's the whole thing. I always get the guy's name mixed up. and it's true. You have to know your enemy. I mean, our enemy wants to bring our population down to a manageable level. There's just too many of us. The eugenics movement really never went away. That's the big secret. Well, one of the big secrets. There's so many. But that's the truth. That's what's happening here. And it's disgusting. Of course it's disgusting. It's terrible. You have this healthcare holocaust coming on with Obamacare. It's going to put people out of work. They're deindustrializing us, ladies and gentlemen, by design, doing it intentionally to bring us to a lower standard of living, acceptable margins, things that we'll accept. We'll embrace our servitude, our slavery, because we have been programmed to obey. Murder, killing, war, it's all justifiable because we have been programmed to obey. And they're continuing to make it harder for us to not submit, harder for us to resist, using these big pharma, nightmarish drugs and all of the other evil things. The food, the water, the fluoride, the GMO, it's very specific. The New World Order is very, very specific. It's compartmentalized, it's specific, it can be identified, it can be challenged, it can be attacked, it can be fought, it can be defeated. It can be identified. I do it. Read Elsevier. Look at that. There's your propaganda arm of the New World Order. The whole goddamn arm. It's like the Ninth Army, or whatever they call it, the Fifth Army in the old days, whatever they called it with the war. It's the most powerful part. Read Elsevier, a Dutch English company, quote unquote, controls just about everything about medical books, school books, magazines, all different areas. It's unbelievable. It's the truth. I'll do another show on Read Elsevier in the near future. Thinking about it. Working us to death, groping us if we want to go on vacation. Going to look in our cake boxes on, see if we bring cakes. They're going to check out our cakes and stuff. If people fly, I'll never fly. I'm not going to subject myself to that. Fuck that. Nazi government. No way. And not that it wouldn't still be a Nazi government if Romney had won the election. I just want to again clarify that this controlled opposition thing here is working in such a way where you have the Democrats and the Republicans always fighting for power. And there is real power, and they really do get good things from these things when they are put into power. But it is a fixed system. So the oligarchs control all the policy and all of the promotion and all of the deception on the American people. That's why I fight. Fight the New World Order. Like Chris Freedom Flowers will be returning soon to the airwaves, and I can't wait. And again, I'm going to have December 8th, a big show. It's John Lennon's, the day he was murdered by the CIA, with a MK Ultra-esque, it was MK, I mean, Chapman's totally classic, MK Ultra. It's horrible. And Sherry Kane and Dr. Len Horowitz will be my guests, and of course I should put a little more enthusiasm into that, because they're incredible researchers, activists, workers, writers, journalists, filmmakers, everything, the whole gamut. Been doing it for very many years. Good friends of mine. And then of course we'll have either into the obviously into sometime before the holidays, hopefully. We'll have Fritz Springmeier, who has agreed to again do another interview. Oh, there's my little warning bell. Okay, now I'm warning you that if you do not research, share, understand, research, find the information, learn about it, find that it is true, research it, send it out. We are in a desperate situation. That's why there is a warning bell. Now, for the remaining time in the broadcast, put together a little bit of information as well. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow night here on Truth Talk. We the people, we will rise. Guaranteed. Together. Research. Share. Action. Take action.
Making the planet worse.
A lot of these kids come from bad gene pools. They don't have stable parents making good decisions.
Mercury-containing vaccines may help, not harm kids, according to 2 new studies in the journal Pediatrics. These new studies suggest that the opposite, that the preservatives may actually be associated with improved behavior and mental performance.
Fluoride in water is supposed to fight tooth decay, but could it also cause cancer?
Turns out the government had the right under U.S. law to conduct secret testing on the American public under specific conditions.
The government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
Any attempt to achieve world order must be the work of the devil. Well, join me. I'm glad to sit here at the right hand of Satan.
There's a need for a new world order. Someday, in the next few years, a solution will emerge.
The Great Wall is no longer a wall dividing China from the rest of the world, but it is a reminder of the fact that there are many walls still existing in the world which divide nations and peoples. But we are determined that those differences not prevent us from living together in peace. The interest that each of us has to maintain our independence and the security of our peoples, and the hope that each each of us has to build a new world order.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy to get people actually to love their servitude. People can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Harry Truman to George Bush, stood for freedom and stood for certain propositions that would make America strong and healthy and grow the middle class and shrink poverty and stand against communism. And after 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
Don't assume it was left by accident. If you see something, say something.
A special televised meeting of the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations provides a window to the real story.
The speaker, Vice President Dick Cheney, takes a question from David Rockefeller.
Vice President, I just enjoyed so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americans. And I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
He was Chairman Emeritus of the CFR when Vice President Dick Cheney once served as a director, a relationship that Cheney concealed during his congressional career.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for Americans in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
A new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
The technology is based on answering one simple question. Am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify passenger identities at airports. Within 10 years, that technology may be even more widespread. And look for more complex facial recognition programs that scan a crowd of thousands looking for a single terrorist. The latest home security locks use fingerprints to control deadbolts. And at the Jewel Osco grocery store in Chicago, some customers pay using their fingerprints. No paper or plastic.
You don't really need anything other than your hand, and you already got that.
Welcome to the New World Order. Move orderly. Submit. of CIA man drugged. Now, we know what happened. I went on record with this. I made a film about this and a recent broadcast, and I'll go over this again. This is from the New York Times, James Reason. And right there, Dick Cheney, well, there's Frank Gerald Ford apologizing in 75 to the family of Frank Olson, right here. But Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld sent Mrs. Olson correspondence, and they paid her off $775,000 in 1974 for wrongful death. Now, nearly 60 years after the death of Frank Olson, who had been given LSD by none less than, goodness, long day, Sidney Gottlieb, spiked his Cointreau. Without his knowledge, his family says it plans to sue the government, alleging he was murdered and did not commit suicide, as the CIA had long maintained, even though they were paid off. Eric and Nils Olson, whose father, Frank Olson, was the scientist, said they plan to file a lawsuit in the United States District Court here on Wednesday in Washington, accusing the CIA of covering up the truth.
UN Agenda 21, bailouts, sellouts, Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, false flag, terror attacks, Bill Gates, Henry Kissinger, New World Order, mind control, Bank of America stealing homes with cut and paste mortgage loans, police, state, taser guns, FEMA camps, Mandarin, Monsanto rules the food supply while Big Pharma dopes your mind, prison system, profiteers, foundations, fund the fears, fund the evil through the years, the world's not as it appears. CIA smuggles drugs while Wachovia and Wells Fargo launder them, then give the proceeds to the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now the IRS takes money out of every single check. Money created out of thin air and leave you with debt. They want to make you a serf, a slave to their demand. They want to take your life in every way they can. Fluoride, GMO, vaccines, chemtrails, United Nations genocide. The world they show us is not real. This is how they kill and steal. Rothschild, Bundy, Rockefeller, Club of Rome. On the Georgia Guidestones is written in stone. Cut through the matrix, awaken to the lies. Do not be hypnotized. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I certainly didn't broadcast that, but that's what people have watched, including the archive library at Truth Talk News on livestream.com. And I'm going to plug YouTube, Freedom First Films, which again, in the last year has taken a large step in the positive direction. If the economy looked like the views and the viewership of the information that I'm sharing with you here and asking you to research and find the truth and then share the same information, if we're all doing this, boy, we'll not only take back our country, we'll be creating a new media. And I think that is really the goal here, is to create a new media, a real media, a truth media. And people are tired of the lies. CNN getting caught, all of them lying. And of course, it is well known that they're lying. And the media is controlled. Today, I happen to, I'm going to do a little digression. Because today, this morning, I had shifted my schedule. I was home today I'm going to, had a few things I had to take care of. And it was just unbelievable that they had a new lawsuit is being put together against the government, the CIA, for the death of Frank Olson, who of course was dosed with LSD. And CNN gave this ridiculous, I mean, my God, where they were like totally positioned in this, and oh, this and that, and then, you know, I mean, totally were loaded questions and loaded information and controlled completely. And then what I noticed was that I went to CNN. I couldn't find the feed of that, or the rebroadcast of it, or the information of it, or the article of it. In fact, I think I'll just go right now. I'm trying to find some information on it because it's current and it's very important. Because last week I actually made a video that I'll play for everyone. That's up on Freedom First Films on YouTube. And let me see. It was Frank Olson. Lawsuit 2012 against CIA. Yeah, maybe that should do it. Okay, all right, here it is. It's a New York Times article. Okay, so there's a New York Times article, and I'll read from it. Suit planned over the death.
Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high. Roger, understand. Over 300 missiles inbound now.
Good evening. I'm Howard Nima, and you're watching Truth Talk News on TruthBroadcastNetwork.com. It is Wednesday, November 28th, 2012, a relatively significant day for Truth Talk News. It is 1 year ago today that I began the live stream channel that you're currently watching the stream from on Truth Talk News, livestream.com, Truth Talk News. And it's done well as far as getting the information out. I know that the minutes, I believe, we're up to somewhere around 1,350,000 minutes